Welcome to Lost to Limitless with Sofia Rose Bernardi. I'm your host, mindset and business coach, here to help you conquer self-doubt and bring your vision to life. I built a six-figure business in under 12 months and more importantly, have helped my clients to get amazing results in their life, business and relationships using my signature online program, the Reset and Rise Mastermind. In this podcast, I take you a layer deeper into my life as well as sharing tools and strategies to reach your full potential. If you're looking to bring your vision to life, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to the Lost to Limitless podcast. I am so grateful you are here and I'm so grateful to be here. In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my story from how I went from a place of feeling lost, stuck, and not enough to limitless in my potential and my confidence in myself. And the reason I've decided to make this the very first episode is because why would you follow my journey or follow my podcast or work with me if you don't know who I am, what I do, and why I do what I do? So that's really where I'm going to be starting. And yeah, just before I get into my story, which by the way, I haven't planned at all. I like to be very raw and just unfiltered. But before I get into that, I just want to share, what you'll be expecting from this podcast, right? So I highly recommend following me if you are interested in the following. So I'm going to be sharing, tools and strategies and tips and how-tos every week so that you can learn tools on how to reach your full potential, build unstoppable confidence in yourself and conquer self-doubt. And I'm also going to be sharing stories, both from my own personal life and my journey, but also other people's stories. So I have no doubt I'll be interviewing people in the near future to hear their stories, because I get so inspired about other people's stories, how they went from a place of feeling lost and not good enough to just getting stuff done and helping people and creating impact. I get so passionate about it. So yeah, I can't wait to interview people and really share their stories. So yeah, that's a little bit of what you can expect from the following podcast. So if that's something you're interested in, I highly recommend following my journey and following the podcast. So that's a little bit about that. And yeah, these podcasts will primarily be unfiltered, raw, not edited, just because it's going to make it easier. And I love listening to podcasts where people just sort of ramble and go on a tangent. I really love it. So I'm not going to be planning these episodes that much. I'm just going to talk my heart, and whatever comes to mind, I'll share it really. But obviously, if you're listening along and you have any recommendations, please send me a DM on Instagram or Facebook so that I know what people want to hear. But anyways, let's get on to the episode. So if you don't already know, my name is Sofia Rose Bernardi, and I am a mindset and business coach for women primarily. I do work with men as well, but primarily I work with women. And I work with men and women in various different ways. So I work with people through my one-on-one coaching program. I also have my signature online program called Reset and Rise. That is just for women, and it's a mastermind, which I'll get into later in this episode. And then I also have a business inner circle that goes for 6 months for online coaches, healers, and consultants called Dream Catchers. And I love all of my programs so much. They all deliver a different outcome. And if you would like to know any more details about what I just mentioned, please just head to my website, sofiarosebernardi.com, and it's in the description. So yeah, that's how people can work with me and sort of what I do. But yeah, mainly what I do is I help people to conquer self-doubt and bring their vision to life. And obviously, people's vision is really different, right? You might want to start a business, your vision might be to be the best mum in the world. Whatever it is, I just help you bring it to life if you're not you're not sure how to actually go about that process, or you have limitations or past experiences that are holding you back from moving forwards, essentially. So yeah, that's what I do, and I'm really passionate about it. But let's backtrack a little bit to how I even came to this place where I'm now helping men and women from all around the world, right? So I guess we'll start in 2013. That's really when everything took quite a drastic turn in my life. So yeah, I had a beautiful childhood. I've got an incredible family. I'm very lucky in that sense. I was born in South Australia and I lived here in Adelaide, South Australia, until I was 16 years old, which was in 2013. And yeah, when I turned 16, I found out some pretty challenging news within my family that a family member of mine had a severe mental illness of addiction, and it disrupted my immediate family quite significantly, and it resulted in, some not so great circumstances where my mum, my brother, my sister and I actually had to move across the other side of the planet to Denmark, because that's where my mum is from. And when lots of, challenging situations happened in our life, my mum really wanted to be close to her family again. So the four of us moved to Denmark, where she's from. So I'm technically half Danish because she's completely Danish. I'm a quarter Australian, even though I'm born in Australia, and I'm a quarter Italian because my dad is half Italian, half Australian. So yeah, even though I'm very much, I very much feel like an Australian, I'm actually only a quarter Australian, but anyways. Yeah, so we moved to Denmark when I was 16 years old, and that is where everything in my life totally changed. I went from being a social butterfly, having lots of friends, a great social life, in school, and yeah, I loved hanging out with all of my friends, to unexpectedly, very, very short notice, moving to the other side of the world in a different culture, country, continent, different language. Everything was different, right? Different temperature. Yeah, my whole life did a complete 180, which, was very, very challenging. And this is where everything really changed for me. So, yeah, what next? So all of a sudden I'm in Denmark. We didn't really have much. We all sort of moved over there with very little belongings, and in the place that we were living in, there wasn't even a bedroom for me. So I actually went and lived with my beautiful auntie and uncle, and I lived there for a couple of years actually. And so anyways, I went to school in Denmark. That was really challenging, obviously, because I was in high school and I had to suddenly learn another language. So I felt like a reception, or like a 5-year-old suddenly in, year 11 or year 10 or whatever. So I had a lot of catching up to do because I couldn't understand anything any of the teachers were saying, or my textbooks or my homework, let alone exams or anything to pass school, right? So that was challenging. I definitely knew a little bit of Danish because I had heard my mum speaking it from a young age, and I've had obviously been to Denmark multiple times before for holidays and things like that. So it wasn't completely foreign to me, but I definitely couldn't get very far speaking the language. So it was pretty challenging, to be honest, and I ended up starting and stopping school, and the teachers telling me, that I wasn't ready yet, and that was really hard to hear because all I wanted to do was finish school and get out of there, and to be told that I wasn't good enough and I had to go get special help and all of those things, it was just really hard for me. So I was really in and out of school, getting extra Danish classes and all of these things, and I just started to feel so different, so isolated, so misunderstood, and just not good enough, right? And it was really, really challenging. And I sometimes forget how challenging it actually was until I start talking about it. So yeah, that was my life for a few years. And, there were lots of family things going on that was very emotionally challenging, which I won't go into detail today. But yeah, lots of challenges. And it just took me in a really deep hole. And I ended up becoming, very angry, which I now know is just, me being really hurt. I was really hurt. But anyways, I became very angry, very defensive, very much victim mentality mode. And even at times, feeling pretty depressed, right? I felt like a nobody, and I felt very alone, and I just felt like no one really understood me or my situation, and no one could really help. And I also didn't even know how to communicate what was wrong. I had no idea what was wrong. Something didn't feel right at all. And anyways, so I went into this sort of depressed stage of my life, I suppose, where my whole personality changed. I went from being, a very energetic and bubbly and happy human being to actually very sad and lost and confused and desperate and alone. And I just remember my whole personality changing. At school, I was quite happy to just sit alone on my computer and just watch YouTube videos and just be in my own little shell, because I honestly just didn't have the energy to hang out with people. And don't get me wrong, now I have some of my bestest friends actually live in Denmark now, so things did change, but I just went through this period where I didn't even have the energy to talk to people. And that's really sad, because that is so unlike me. By nature, I'm very energetic, and I would say I'm an extrovert. And I totally felt like an introvert for a period of time in Denmark, and it was really, really hard. I quit school. I even at one point had enough, and how old was I? Maybe I was 17 years old. I booked a ticket to go to Australia. I had no idea what I was doing, but thankfully someone convinced me not to do that, because I didn't have insurance. I don't even think I had an Australian passport at the time, because mine had expired. So had I actually tried to go there, I wouldn't have gotten into Australia anyway. But I didn't know any of that at the time. I was just really desperate and crying for help. But thankfully, someone convinced me to cancel my ticket and stay where I was and give school in Denmark one last try. And thankfully, I did that, and I completed school, and I passed, and the rest is history, sort of thing. So I went into that dark place, and what I realized upon reflection is something I did a lot during that stage of my life was I was blaming other people. I was blaming, lots of different people for why my life was the way it was, why I was feeling the way I was. Basically, it was everyone's fault except for mine. And whilst, that may have been true in the sense that it wasn't my fault and it was totally out of my control, I realized one very important thing after a few years of suffering, and that was, whilst it's not my fault, it's still my responsibility. And that was such a game changer for me in my life. And I'll tell you how I came about this learning or realization or breakthrough or whatever you want to call it. I was one day probably crying, just sitting in my bed with my laptop like usual. And I remember going on YouTube and searching how to be happy. This was honestly something I did quite a bit. But this was probably at one of my lowest points. I was just Googling how to be happy. And I started watching lots of different videos from YouTubers or influencers or whatever, and I very slowly started to pick up on tools and information and wisdom from other people, and it all started to, that's where I really sort of started to learn that there was another perception, another way of thinking and being and feeling. And I started to feel not so alone, in the sense there were so many people on YouTube that were sharing their story of how they went from a place of really struggling to really succeeding and feeling really fulfilled in their life. And I started to feel like, if other people can do it, maybe I can too. But there was one video in particular that really struck a chord in me and changed my life forever. I was listening to some random video, I think while I was cleaning my room even. I would just listen to these videos while doing other things. And this man on stage, he was talking about something, and then all of a sudden he said, life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. And I just got chills all over my body when I heard that. And in that moment, I realized that I had been living for so many years as if life was happening to me. You know, this problem happened, this happened, this happened, it's all happening to me, and why me, why me, why me? Like I said, I was in a serious victim mentality, right? And when I heard that, I had never heard anything like it. And then it really hit me. So then I started looking up this person. I didn't even know who was talking on stage. And I started researching him more and more and listening to all of his videos. And something just felt so right about this. So I will mention the person. So the person who I was listening to was actually Tony Robbins. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. If not, he is a I can't even say that word, philanthropist? No, that's not how you say it. Anyways, massive contributor to the world, and he is a speaker, author, and, you know, a business strategist and life coach. And I didn't know anything about coaches or anything like that, but I ended up watching a lot of his videos, and that led me to one day buying all of his books. And that was not like me at all. You know, I was afraid of spending money. I hated spending money, in fact, but I just felt so called to buy his books. So I bought all of them, and I slowly started reading his books. And I was a really slow reader, but because there was so much information that was just really resonating with me, I started taking notes. In fact, I wrote a whole book on just notes, basically, from his books. The book I'm referring to in particular, that was the first book I read, was Awaken the Giant with him. It made a really big impact on my life, and I was taking so many notes, and I just started to realize that the way I was feeling and behaving and acting, you know, it's just patterns and habits of behavior. And he really taught me that you can actually change that. And when I realized I could change that, I was all in for that, because I did not want to stay where I was. And so anyways, I went on this journey and I followed the steps in the book and things like that. And I started to really see that I had been blaming a lot of people for where I was in my life. And I actually had to take full responsibility for where I was if I wanted to change it. I realized I had given all of my power away to specific people I was blaming. And I remember Tony one day saying, you know, if you're going to blame someone, blame them effectively. And he said to thank them. And so I remember writing all these letters, thanking all these people. And I started to feel immediately so much better. And anyways, that was just the beginning. And so very slowly, this was just the beginning. I had a lot more work to do, by the way. But that was the very beginning, right? And then what happened was I finished school in Denmark, and I had a boyfriend at the time. And straight after I finished school, him and I, he was from Australia. We traveled Europe together for, you know, a month and a bit, and then I moved back to Australia, where, you know, half of my family is living, and, you know, that's where my boyfriend was living, and all of these things. And I felt like Australia is my home, and it is my home. And so I moved back to Australia on my own, which was really scary, but definitely something I wanted to do, and I'm super glad I made that decision. But a part of me thought by moving to Australia, you know, all my problems would go away and I would be fine and happy and things like that. But my goodness, was I wrong. Moving countries does not fix all of your problems, let me tell you. So what happened was I moved back to Australia, and I had nowhere to live, right? So I moved into my grandparents' house, and I started paying them rent. And, you know, that's, you know, when you're 21 years old, that's probably not what you want to be doing, living with your 70-year-old grandparents. But that's what I did, and I'm super grateful for it now. But I was just super lost and confused, you know. I was on a little bit of a high after moving to Australia, but very quickly I realized that, you know, nothing had really changed other than my location, and I still was really lost in my life. I may have started to realize that, you know, I could make changes, but I still didn't know how or what, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And so, of course, I had lots of my parents' friends telling me to go to university, try this degree, do this course, how about this course, like just telling me what I should do or giving me suggestions. And for some reason, nothing was really clicking for me. You know, nothing felt like, yes, this is what I want to do. I had moments where I was like, yeah, I could be a wedding planner or an interior designer or an architect or a counselor, but nothing was really like, yes, this is my calling. So I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want to just go to university or college, whatever you want to call it, for the sake of it. So I decided to just work for a little bit. So I started working for my uncle at his bar, which I'm really grateful for. And it was just, 3 hours of work a day or something every few days. It wasn't very much to get by, but it was enough to sort of pay my rent and food and things like that. And I did that for probably about a year. And yeah, a few months into moving to Australia, I was in this deep hole. I was very upset because I just felt like I didn't have a purpose. I was living with my grandparents. I didn't have much confidence in myself because I had lost all of that in Denmark. And yeah, I just was not in a great place. And anyways, the only really good thing I felt I had at the time was my relationship with my partner. But unfortunately, that relationship ended, and that broke me. So that relationship ended, I'm gonna guess August, September, October, November, January. I would say about 6 months into being in Australia, that relationship ended. So we were together for a year and a half. So a year of that was long distance when I was in Denmark and he was in Australia, and then 6 months while I was in Australia. And then that ended and my world crumbled. I don't even know how to explain how much pain I felt from that. He's a beautiful person, I'm a beautiful person. We were just young, and also, I had no confidence in myself and no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I can imagine that definitely caused, some conflict and some issues within the relationship, because I was just so confused with myself. And so that would have been very hard for him to sort of deal with as well, right? So anyways, the relationship ended, and it's like my heart broke into a million, billion, trillion pieces. And I have never felt so much pain in my life. I went through a lot with my family and things like that, but for some reason, this just struck a chord in me. And so anyways, I felt like I officially had nothing to my name or nothing in my life, and the last good thing in my life was gone. So I was working this casual job that wasn't, supporting me financially very well, and it was just a very casual job, waitressing. And I was living with my grandparents, and I thought I was going to be alone forever. Not a great combination. And I lost so much weight. I just couldn't stomach food, and I lost so much confidence in myself, and I just felt, I felt so alone. And that took me a long, long time to get over. But now I'm actually so grateful that this happened, and I'll continue to explain why. But at the time, I thought that this was the worst thing that once again, happening to me, right? And anyways, so fast forward a little bit, I decided to move out of my grandparents' home and go live with some random people to try something different, get out of my comfort zone, and just, I don't know, I was just ready to move out of my grandparents' place. So I found some random people to live with, very scary but exciting, I suppose. And again, I spent a lot of time on my own because I just felt like, even though I was back in Australia, no one really understood why I was so upset over this breakup and why I just could not move on from it. So again, I spent a lot of time on my own. I would basically just go for a walk every day, an hour-long walk, listening to music or a podcast or even silence. And sometimes I brought a book or something like that, and I would just read. And that's, how I spent a lot of my time. And it was through starting to really read that I started to tap into personal development books. I know I said I read Tony Robbins' book in Denmark, but that was really the only book. And then it was when, I went through this breakup that I started searching for answers. I was like, I cannot bear this feeling anymore. I need to understand why it is I'm feeling like this and how I can change it. So I started reading lots of books on spirituality, personal development, confidence, all the things. And I started to understand the human mind a little bit more and, understand myself more and other people. And I became obsessed. I would listen to lots of videos, and very, very slowly I started to set little goals for myself, like exercising. And I was proud of myself if I just, went for a small bike ride or a walk or a little jog, because I didn't have the strength, the emotional or physical capability to do any of that for such a long time throughout this breakup, because I just felt so weak. And so being able to just, start to do more than just a walk, started to feel really good. So I started setting lots of little goals for myself, and that was really nice. And I kept reading, but then it got to a point where I was like, I need more than a book. I need someone to actually help me. I need to dive deeper in this, because I started to become passionate about that, and I was excited by that because I had never been really passionate about anything in my life before, to this level. So I thought, I was one day at a family friend's house and I was talking about Tony Robbins, and she saw I had the book on me, and she said, he does events. She's like, he comes to Australia. If you love him so much, why don't you just go to one of his events? And I knew he had events, but it just didn't strike me that that's actually something I could go to and do. So anyways, I started looking into it, and I saw that his cheapest event was 997 Australian dollars. And for me, whilst I had the finances, I definitely had the finances, I was so afraid to invest that amount of money, even though I knew it would change my life, even though I knew it's what I wanted to do. This huge, overwhelming amount of fear came up for me, telling me, do you really want to do this? Are you sure? It's a lot of money. That was what my mind was rambling on about, and it made it really hard for me to make a decision. I sort of felt paralyzed and stuck, and I just was unable to make a decision. The sales team from the Tony Robbins company kept calling me saying, do you want to do this? We can put you on a payment plan, all these things. And I just kept ignoring their calls or delaying it or saying, I'll get back to you. I just have to go to work now. And I kept putting it off because I was so freaking scared, even though I knew I wanted to do it. It was the weirdest thing. And I now know it's just fear, right? But anyways, I eventually invested in it, and I felt sick to my stomach, but at the same time, the moment the payment went through, I started to feel slightly relieved. I was like, wow, my life could change after this weekend event. And I had to wait months and months until it was on. It was on in Sydney, so I had to fly to Sydney and get a hotel and things like that. And it was a bit of an experience, actually. And it's through going to this event that I learned so much about myself and about life and about people. I took so many notes. I really got my energy back, and I decided at this event that I was very aware, I'd spoken to a lot of people that had been to this event before, and I knew that half the people walk away from that event and their life goes back to normal, and the other half changed their life forever. And I wanted to be in the half that changes their life forever. And so I decided to go all in, right? Energetically, physically, emotionally, everything. I went all in. And one of the biggest things you learn at that event is the power of having a coach and the power of having support. And so I decided to act on that, because if I didn't, I was going to be the percentage that goes back to their normal life. And I really wanted to act on what I had learned, because something else I had learned at that event is knowledge is only powerful if you use it. So it's only potential power. It's really power if you utilize the knowledge. And so I had learned the power of investing in yourself and having a coach. So I decided to get a coach, and I got one immediately after this event. And I also decided at this event that I wanted to become a coach because I couldn't believe how much I could shift, within myself within just 3 days, right? And it gave me this burning desire, there are so many people out there that are suffering, that are upset, that are going through heartbreak or pain or whatever it might be, or feeling lost or stuck or not enough. And they just don't know about these tools, that it doesn't have to be that way. They can actually change their life and create profound change. And so I decided I wanted to become a coach to help those people out there so they don't have to go through years of suffering like I did. That was my driving force. I was like, no one needs to go through this. And I want to be the one to help them, to show them that there's another way, that there's more to life than just struggling your way through it. So I got a coach to help me become a coach. And this coach started to teach me tools and strategies on how to start a business, because I knew that doing that on my own, so much fear would come up and I just wouldn't act on it. So I'm so glad I got a coach. And he took me through a breakthrough process to really heal parts of myself. I still had a lot of things to work through, like traumas and past pains and things like that. So he took me through some really powerful processes using NLP techniques, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And he took me through a process called timeline therapy, and it totally changed my life to the point that I'm now an NLP practitioner, and that's how one of the ways I help my clients too. So he did that with me, and then also taught me how to become a coach, which really got me out of my comfort zone. So even though I didn't feel ready, I just knew I needed to act while I had this, supercharge of energy from this event. And so I started posting, inspirational content and things like that on Facebook and Instagram, and very slowly I started coaching some people, which was a really fun experience. But, when you jump into an online business and these things, it doesn't take long before you realize how much you don't know. And so I worked with this coach for some time, and then I moved on to another program which taught me, in greater depth, how to become a coach, what to do, what not to do, why to do things, and also helped me to improve my coaching skills as well. So I started investing a lot in myself, and this again was not an easy decision. I went from being super afraid to invest, $997 in a Tony Robbins program to, $3,000 for the first coach, $5,500 for the next coach, then $9,000 for the coach after that, and then $7,500. Like, I just invested so much money in coaches and programs, and I don't regret anything. Yes, some coaches have been better than others, some I've learned from more than others, but collectively it's been so important. Every single investment has taught me either what to do or what not to do, and taught me more about myself and what I want and how I want to help people. So I'm actually so grateful I've invested in so many different people and programs, because it's really just taught me so much about business and life and myself. And anyway, so after investing so much, I finally learned these proven tools and strategies, because I worked with one coach to help me on my inner healing journey and my energetic state. I worked with another coach to help me on my mindset and confidence, and another coach on business strategies. And it's when I've combined everything I've learned from each coach and put it all together that something magical has happened. It's from tapping into the masculine energy and the feminine energy, with the right strategy and mindset. All of that collectively is what has made such a transformation within my life and allowed me to really show up and help people at such a deep level. So that's sort of my story in a nutshell, and that's what's led me here. So it was not easy when I first started, becoming a coach. I did not know what I was doing, and, the first coach I had, was mainly helping me with my own emotional blocks, because I had a lot of that to work through first, right? And so the strategy side of things, I didn't really have much of that. And so it wasn't until I invested in other coaches that I really started to learn that stuff. And yeah, so I tried for quite some time and nothing was working. No one was paying full prices. I hated sales. I hated marketing. I hated all of it, actually. It felt so yuck and so uncomfortable to me. But yeah, when I started to, I eventually got really sick of, wanting something but not going after it and not going all in on it, that I decided to invest, a significant amount of money in someone to teach me these things. So that was $9,000, and that was a huge investment for me, but I was ready. I was like, if this is all I want to do, wouldn't I do anything to achieve it? And the answer was yes, of course I would. Why would I sit and try and figure this out on my own if this is all I want to do? If I have this big vision of, helping millions of people around the world and earning so much money and all of these things, wouldn't I invest this amount of money now if that could lead to that? And of course I would do that. And so that's what I did. And I just, because I went all in on my dreams, it finally worked. And yeah, now that leads me to now, where I've currently got over 60 clients, both men and women, primarily women from all around the world. So currently, as I'm recording this, I have clients in Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Canada. I've worked with people from Africa, all over Europe, all over America. Where else? I've worked with people from everywhere. It is so profound, and I am eternally grateful. So grateful. So yeah, I've got all these beautiful clients. I've actually, in front of me right now, are all these post-it notes of all of my clients. Every time, someone joins my program, I put their name on my office wall so that I can see everyone's name. And there's just so many beautiful love heart post-it notes in front of me with all of these incredible people that have said yes to themselves and their dreams, and I get to serve them within my program. So yeah, currently working with, around 60 people in both Reset and Rise, my 12-week Mastermind, and Dream Catchers, my 6-month Inner Circle, and then my one-on-one programs too. So yeah, that's kind of my story, guys. So, had a beautiful childhood, unexpectedly moved to Denmark, fell into a deep hole, eventually moved back to Australia, went through a massive breakup, which led me to deciding to understand myself so much more so I could help myself, because I realized no one was coming to save me and I had to do it myself. And that led me to wanting to dive even deeper on myself, which led me to going to seminars, and which led me to investing in coaches, which led me to becoming a coach myself, which has led me to coaching so many women and men from around the world, which has now led me to creating this podcast. And I know with, every single cell in my body that this is just the beginning. And I'm really proud and grateful to say that with such confidence. And I just want you to know that I have not always had this confidence in myself to say something as bold as that. But I've done so much work on myself that now it gets to feel good to say, yes, I can do this. Yes, I will do this. And yes, I must do this. That's taken a lot of work to comfortably and proudly say that without any inch of doubt in my mind. And don't get me wrong, I absolutely experience fear and doubt all the time, because I'm always out of my comfort zone, taking my life to the next level. However, something I have realized is I have the tools and strategies now to overcome the fear and process the emotions easily and effortlessly when they do come up, because of everything that I've learned and embodied, right? So yeah, that's my story, everyone. And basically, you're probably thinking, but how did you actually get from this place of feeling lost and now becoming limitless? And so it's through all of these programs and investments I've made in myself that I've, unpacked so much stuff and learned so many tools that really work. And then obviously I implemented them, which has led me to creating this really beautiful, successful online business. And I'm in a beautiful relationship now, and I'm in a beautiful home in Australia. I'm just super lucky, and not lucky, but I'm super grateful is what I'll say. Very grateful. And now I obviously want to help people to do the same. I want to teach you what I know. And so that's why I created the Reset and Rise Mastermind. So Reset and Rise is a 6-week program, but you get 12 weeks access to it, so you can really take your time and dive deep and get as much out of it as possible. And so it's broken into 6 steps that I have used to go from this place of being lost with so much pain and suffering and challenges to a place of unstoppable confidence, bringing my vision to life, reaching all of my goals, and feeling really good externally and internally within myself. And so, yeah, by joining Reset and Rise, you learn this 6-step process that's very deep, very thorough, very emotional, very challenging, but also deeply supported and guided and beautiful. And I just have so much joy showing up to these live group coaching calls every single week, supporting all these incredible women from around the world and seeing all the incredible feedback from the online course of the sessions, right? So it's an online course. You can do it at your own pace, and then for 12 weeks you get 2 group coaching calls every single week as an opportunity to connect with other members, ask questions, get coached, get supported, and all of these things. So it's really my little baby. It's my favorite program ever. If you would love to know more information about it, I will leave a link in the show notes and the description. And yeah, otherwise just go to sofiarosebernardi.com and yeah, you'll find the page where you can learn more about Reset and Rise, the investment, how to join, all of the things. But if you've listened all this way, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time, whether you're driving, in bed, out walking, multitasking, whatever you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. I would love for you to review it, share it with your friends, and yeah, if you share this podcast, tag me on Instagram and I will reshare it. And I would love to hear from you, your feedback, because that will allow me to continue to improve this podcast and everyone's experience, and yeah, get to know you as well. Now that I've shared my story, I'd love to know more about you and what you want to hear from me so that I can create that content for you. So this is the first video all about my story, and yeah, I just can't stress enough how grateful I am to be here and to have you listen all the way. So all my love, everyone. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in next week's episode.